Welcome to the Lighthouse Torah Project. I'm Avraham Shira, still. It's good to be here. It's another eventful week of life in Torah, life in Eretz Israel. I want to turn on the chat here. And we have a sponsor, that's right. I wrote that in my notes. Rena Klein has sponsored our class tonight in memory of her father, Yosef ben Yekutiel HaKohen. His yahrzeit is the 14th of ER. And so we honor Rabbi Yosef, the son of Yekutiel, and his memory should be for goodness and peace and blessing in Gan Eden, and for all those who are connected to him should receive part of that blessing. I've chosen a subject that I'm sure you're hearing a lot about in the Jewish world right now, which of course is the Sefirat haOmer. That's where we are. We're in those 7 weeks between the leaving Egypt and receiving the Torah. And it's always astounding how perfect God is, how precise he runs the world. And I guess it's part of our job to find that out, to discover that, to speak of it. And how it is that God is so perfect, well, I guess you have to be God to understand that. But the rabbis do say an interesting statement. They said, Em yadativ ha'itiv. That's an Aramaic phrase from Zohar. If I knew him, I would be him. Well, folks, that's his big setup. If I knew him, I'd be him. Well, if you have a little bit of eagle and a little bit of Torah and a little bit of Christianity, you're right there. If I knew him, I'd be him. It's dangerous. But really, we have to understand the depth of the statement, not how people have abused the metaphysics of Torah and Kabbalah, which is certainly what's happened over the history of world religions. But the idea is that if you know God, which how can you know something is infinite when we're not? But if you know him, you would be him because he is the totality. So if you know his totality, his complete eternity, and which is time, and infinity, which is space, you would be him because you would have to be him to know him. So by inversion, you would have to, if you know him, you're going to be him. But it just also, of course, it touches on this idea of knowing Hashem, which we were commanded, Da, Hashem Elokecha, Da lifnei ata omed, lifnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and so many other commands. So we are told to know him, and yet we can't. Isn't that a wonderful paradox? But these paradoxes are set up for us to explore. That's important because the exploration is what expands our minds in the first place. I just read something from Machiavelli, Niccolò Machiavelli, probably one of the most violent philosophical thinkers in terms of his sense of the rights of power and the exercise of power. And he says intelligence is a sign of intelligence to know one's ignorance. So in Torah, it's not hard to know one's ignorance. I learned that the first day I walked into a class. I listened to the rabbi speak. I said, man, this guy knows a lot of stuff I never knew. Okay. But we are here to know as much as we can know safely, soundly, wholly. And thanks to the Torah Lighthouse, over there on the distant shore. I grew up in Florida, so I know about lighthouses and a little bit, and boats a little bit. And, the idea of a lighthouse is to get you home. get you home to the shore. And really, I think that's, that's one of the reasons I became religious. I want to get home. I want to get home to Eretz Israel. And of course, our ultimate home is the world to come, Gan Eden, heaven as we create it with our mitzvot. So let's move on now to the idea of tonight's class, Sefirat haOmer and rebuilding the vessels of God in man. And we have to ask some basic questions that address the title of the class. And let's see where they're going to take us to some very interesting places. So, of course, the first question, what is a spiritual vessel? Where's my mug? Right? This is not a spiritual vessel, folks. This is a physical vessel. What is a spiritual vessel? How do you define such a thing? What a vessel, we understand, it's something that holds something else. That's not so hard. What is a spiritual vessel? What is it that holds wisdom? What is it that holds understanding, knowledge, all the important things that we strive for? Oh, Miriam. Very nice, Miriam. I'm not going to read this out loud. It could be profanity. Since you are a good guy, I would like to ask you if you please could elevate a prayer for me. I know, Miriam, I recognize you also from Facebook. Miriam del Carmen. My mother's name is Dea. Oh, Dea, like dot. Enriqueta. My father's name is Silvestre Manuel. That Miriam del Carmen, the daughter of Dea Enriqueta and Silvestre Manuel, should be blessed to know herself at the ultimate level and to recognize her true other half with clear eyes, total understanding, and to build a holy family in the midst of Am Yisrael, and to merit the joy of children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren, and to learn Torah every day of your life and teach your children also. Al titosh Torah timecha, v'musa avicha al tazovu. King Solomon says, don't weaken the Torah of your mother. It doesn't say the Torah of your father, the Torah of your mother. And don't abandon the ethics of your father. The ethics go with the father, but Torah goes with the mother. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but all of you holy women in Am Yisrael hold the thing together, really, in a very deep way, with the Torah of the mother. Because Torah is the teaching of how to get to God, how to get close. Wisdom is understanding this creation that we find ourselves in. Musar avicha, the ethics of your father. Ethics are sound values that most nations and most wise people in any religion or culture can agree on basic ethics. But the Torah is really assigned to the woman, to the mother of children, because her connection is through the heart and not through the mind. Okay, before I get into the dangerous waters of male-female assignations, let's go forward. What are these spiritual vessels? You guys got to help me out here. I can't answer all the questions. I know you know. I know you know. What is a spiritual vessel? What holds your kindness in place? What keeps your kindness from going all over the planet? What keeps you from going down to Miami Beach and just giving away all your money? That's kindness, giving away all your money. That's about as big as you can get, pretty much. What is the vessel that holds the kindness? Well, the Kabbalah teaches us that each vessel holds the light of that which is higher than it. So kindness is being held by the vessel that is one step down from it. The one step down from kindness is gevurah, might, strength, the power of withholding. So kindness is you want to give. It's a wonderful thing. But withholding is also a wonderful thing, to saying, no, that's enough. We stop there. And so that becomes the vessel of the light above it, which is kindness. And so true it is for all 10 Sefirot in the tree of life. Each lower level holds the light that is above it. And so when you start to compare the qualities, what holds wisdom, the ability to connect the dots, is understanding, the ability to separate the dots and understand them separately. So understanding is holding wisdom. And das, or knowledge, holds both of those together as one. That what you know and your awareness, not your cold, hard, factual knowledge, the knowledge of life around you, the awareness of the presence of people, of reality, of life, etc., of God himself. That awareness is really what das is. It's the ability to hold wisdom and understanding together. Okay, so what is this vessel of spirituality in general? Well, automatically we can answer, we just answered it. We said, well, the light below the present light that we're talking about is the vessel of that light. But that, how does that help us here? Because we're talking about Sefirat haOmer, the counting of the period of the Omer, which is from the day after the not first day of Pesach, right? When they brought the Omer offering, which is barley, to the Beit HaMikdash, which would signal to the nation, okay, now we can eat the new wheat. Because the way their cultural Kohanic economy was based on everybody has to give a portion to the Kohanim into the Mikdash. And they would not open up the rights, the ability to start eating the new crop of wheat of that year until the previous year was, used for matzot and used for other big days during the end of the year, so that by the time the end of the Jewish year, which is Adar, the end of Adar, most of the wheat is been used up, and there won't be waste, and there will be used properly. And it's also a sign to the nation that a new blessing, the New Year's crop, has been harvested, which is happening in Israel as we speak. Okay. Have we answered our question? Well, kind of, but not really, because it's really the answer here we're getting is that every vessel, every light is a vessel of the light above it. Right? The vessel of the highlight of Chesed is Gevurah. The vessel of Gevurah is Tiferet. The vessel of Tiferet is Netzach, and so on and so forth. But that doesn't really help our human imagination get past the abstract quality of these powers, being wise or humble or understanding or kind or strong, whatever it might be. So the Arizal is going to help us out here. And I believe this is his chidush Although it's so universal, it's hard for me to believe that no one thought of it sooner. But he teaches us that the word for tsinor, tsinor means a tube, a pipe, a vessel, tsinor. Those letters spell out the word ratzon, desire. So let's go back to our question. What is the vessel that holds the light? It's your desire itself. For the light is the vessel to receive it. If you don't want the thing, you won't be able to hold it when you get it. It'll pour off of you. If God poured divine inspiration on you and you didn't want it, God, I don't want to know what you know. I don't want to be there. There's a story like this, actually, from the first Rebbe of Komarna. I believe his name was Rebbe Yitzhak, I'm not sure. The Komarna Rebbe was a huge tzaddik, as in a child genius. And of course, his father, his grandfathers, all of them were very learned, righteous people. Back in, I don't know if Komarna is in Poland or in Alsace or in Belarus, one of those places between between France and China. And the Komarna genius, Ilui, they're called, when a boy is a genius in Torah, the rabbis heard him talk and they said, this kid already has Ruach HaKodesh. And at a certain point, he wanted to learn on his own without God's additional help. And the story goes that he prayed that God remove that power from him. I'm sure it was a little more complicated and other factors that the people were part of the story, but you see that divine inspiration could be something given to you and you can remove it yourself. Of course, the fastest way to remove it is to go against the Torah, but the point here is that when you want, you have to want something to receive it. But what the chidush of the Kabbalah is that your wanting is the means of receiving it. And Rabbi Nachman comes along and says, the reason people don't get what the great things that they want is because they don't want it bad enough. And they don't know how great what they want is. Because the things that we want in the Torah are the highest lights of the universe. The traits and the personality of God, the tree of life, etc., etc. Divine knowledge, universal understanding. I mean, who wouldn't want those things? That's what the Torah sets out for us. So now we've learned a very important step in our goal to understand Sefirat haOmer and this rebuilding of the will of God in man. In other words, God has wills. He has desires. And one of the places those desires appear is in man, humanity. Many other places as well, of course. So we take the letters tsinor and we rewrite them. We come up with the word ratzon, will. That just the wanting, the will, is going to set us up to receive whatever it is we want. We have a choice. What we put in our tsinor, our channel to above, into the higher realms. Now, let's ask a different question. Why is ratzon, will, the vessel for everything else? Why? Why do I have to follow this principle? Why do I have to believe what Avraham says? Well, think about it for a second. If you're God and you have every gift possible to give to all the universe, what is it that God is going to require of us? Well, obviously he requires us to be gentlemen and gentle ladies, to be respectful, to be appreciative. But even then, we see that many non-appreciative, non-respectful people get a lot of blessings. So, but what we understand is that the vessel for receiving, if it's Ratzon, will, why is it the vessel? Well, the simplest answer, and I know you've learned this, we've learned this together, is that the letters of the word are the secret of the essence of the word and its ideas. So Ratzon, will, being that of Tzinor, is telling us that the real vessel of is the desire itself. Okay? Very important to remember. If you feel far from God, it's okay. You're going to feel far from God. It's a long journey. But the minute you remember what Rabbi Nachman says, that wanting is good enough. Wanting is already a stage of receiving. You're never going to be short. You're never going to be, living in the world of lack, because you already have the desire. And that's enough. Okay. Now, again, the more defined question is, why is will the thing? Why is desire the thing? Because I'll tell you one answer is because when you want something, you actually, we're calling this wanting itself the vessel. When you want something, you're creating an empty space. I don't have what I want. I feel lack. I think in lack. I don't, how many times people say, well, I can't do that. I don't have money. That's not the way it works in God's world. In God's world, you decide what you want and the money will come. And if you say, well, I want to do this, but I don't have the money, then God says, oh, I guess you don't have the money. I have plenty of money, God says. But we have to understand, he doesn't need us to think for him. God needs us to want and to believe. I'm supposed to be on this planet for this number of years to do something. I need his help. But I don't have to decide and make all the little detailed, micromanaging decisions that people love to make about God. Oh, God did this and God did that. And, everybody is God's right-hand man. As opposed to going to the other places, you know what? I have nothing. I have no wisdom, no understanding, no knowledge. Whatever I have is not even mine. So what do I really have? Nothing. When I go to that place, I create the vessel to receive, because it's an empty space. And nature abhors a vacuum, including a spiritual vacuum. When you vacate the space of your own ego, you leave behind an empty vessel, a spiritual vacuum. So the one, and that's by the way, you feel that pain in your heart when you don't get what you want. You're actually feeling the rejection of your own desire. In a lot of cases, let's say, because we're talking about a step down. But when we understand the Kabbalah behind it, then we understand that I need to make myself empty in order to receive. I have to create that vacuum, which is Tzinor, which is Ratzon. And if you're smart, you'll refine your request from, I want this, so I'll be humble in order to get it. That's still kind of that's like junior high school or something. I'll do this because I know God wants me to do it, and therefore I'll get what I want. It's not exactly what a father likes to hear his son think. oh, I'll just tell dad what he wants to hear and then he'll give me what I want. That doesn't work too well. Not with me, because it doesn't feel sincere. And really, Rahman Ali Baba'e, that God wants the heart, not the half heart. Okay. Now, so this is our next big principle here. Wanting is the creation of the vessel. It's the recognition of the lack, recognition of the emptiness I feel if I don't have love, or if I don't have, all kinds of things, good and physical and spiritual. Okay, so this is another point we need to remember. Next, we've created this vacuum with our wanting, then we can expect for it to be filled because nature wants to fill it. And when we define it, then it comes back with a greater definition. It meaning the thing we're after. Now, the idea of wanting, ratzon, listen closely. When you want something, you are entering the level through wanting that was the creation in the beginning of time. That is an extremely deep idea and profound. And it's not really, I can't take credit for these things. Think about them, right? Ask questions, but everything that, most everything, has been thought of before. Certainly something like this. But that when you want something, you're creating the vessel by acknowledging the lack. Yeah, I have a lack. I want to fill my lack. Therefore, I have a vessel. Therefore, God has a place to fill my lack. If I break down any step of that on the way, then it's gonna impede me from receiving what we set out for. Now, obviously, for people who really just want to be righteous and good and straight and true and honest and pure and innocent, and all those really easy things to acquire, they're going to have also a thing called innocence, where they're not going to calculate with God about things. I worked for a Holocaust survivor for 13 years and said, how can you be religious after everything you went through? She says, who am I to question God? With utter simplicity and innocence. Okay, so understand this next step, that I am creating the vessel through my wanting because of the lack, and the lack is the connection to the emptiness. Now, I remember back in college and my 20s that I felt a lot of emptiness. It wasn't just the emptiness of American culture, because I was part of that. And it wasn't the emptiness of American politics, because, well, that's no, here we go again. But what it was the feeling of empty, alone, empty in the world, the physical world, the world of ideas. But that actually created the potential to receive something higher, which what we call the Torah. Okay, so wanting creates that thing in potential. You don't necessarily get it right away, but once you identify your wanting, and you can speak it and know it and honor it and connect it to God's will, you've got the vessel to receive the blessing.
something like a?
What does this all have to do with Sefirat haOmer? Let's go back. Remember, Sefirat haOmer, we're going to receive something, folks, in a few more weeks. We're going to receive the greatest document known to humanity. By far, no comparison. Anything. Nothing comes close to the Torah with its profundity, etc. But we understand that the lack that creates a desire, it's still a potential thing. Nothing has been created. Nothing has been brought forth. You have a great idea. Wonderful. Tell your great idea to the wind. Until you start doing something, it's not really, I don't believe God gives us good ideas to kind of like catalog them in our lives. He gives us good ideas to do them in order that we can help change creation. Change the non-human world, if you will. Okay. I'm just looking through my notes and so we said that the wanting creates the thing in potential in the mind. Of course, then what we do helps bring it around close to us. So then we go to our next idea. If wanting, ratzon, desire is sinor, the will to receive power and life force, counting is the actualization of that power and potential. How? Because when I say, you ever go to see a friend on the sidewalk or, hey, what you doing? Oh, I'm waiting for somebody. That's called potential action. He's just standing there, but he's waiting clearly for somebody to come, let's say. So that's the thing in potential, the wanting. The actualization is when I make it real. Now we take that idea and we take it to the Sefirat haOmer. We're trying to build vessels to receive what? What are we trying to receive, folks? 49 gates of Bina. What are those? Never accept terminology in Torah, especially Hasidut and Kabbalah, without having a solid hold on it. Because I don't like speaking in repetitious phrases without really, what am I saying? What am I grabbing onto here? So what we're saying is, if wanting the thing, I want to receive the Torah, and I want to receive it at the highest level I can. God says, okay, I'm going to give you the Torah, but it's going to take you 50 days in the desert. Fine, I'm willing. Just give me an umbrella. The counting of those 50 days is the building of the desire for the thing. Where do you see this? You see this in the movies. You see this in real life. Maybe less nowadays, but I remember, those old romances from the 50s or 60s or whenever, a person will be counting the days until so-and-so returns. The counting is the building of the desire itself. And that's connected to, of course, the power in the Tree of Life, Bina. But now we see we've done something. We've gone from the potential to the actual, from a vague, loose desire to a clear, strong one. And so when we count, we're actually saying, Hayom, Yom, Shishav, Esrim, Yom, LaOmer. So we counted that tonight. I assume, well, you probably counted that in Miami as well by now. Your words of the counting are part of the whole entire process. It's not just a matter of speaking. It's a matter of actualizing. So how do we actualize the wanting to receive the Torah? By counting the Omer and gathering in these powers of receiving. And it sounds like, oh, it doesn't sound so hard. I can do that. Well, I imagine you can, but I'm not going to say it's not hard. Okay. So remember, potential, an idea, a longing, a desire. Actual, going out and getting the goods, right? Whatever the thing is that you want, whatever the actualization is. Especially, but here we're talking about spiritual ideas. We're talking about Tiferet, Shebahod, etc., etc., etc. And so we're talking about these qualities that are extremely refined, and they don't bear the physical world. God's traits really are only forced in this world. Okay. So the actualization is the counting because now we're giving it a vessel. The vessel is the words of the blessing itself. Hayom Yom Esrim V'Shisha Yamim LaOmer. So once we count and we want what we're counting for, it changes the situation to one of, well, maybe God will give it to us and maybe he won't. And it could change it to the level of God. No, God will come through because that's what he does. God never lets us down. He always comes through. Okay. Ooh, how are we doing on time? You have 2 more hours till nightfall. Wait, but Rhonda, you're in Canada, right? Very good. So think of counting. It's not really, it's a physical thing. Counting is taking your words and creating sound, meaningful sound that has power and intent. So that's the actualization of counting, which is rooted, as we said before, in the desire, in the ratzon, which is the tzinor, the channel between the upper and the lower realms. Okay. So now we change our frame a little bit in this pursuit of understanding Sefirat haOmer and the counting and the filling of the vessels, saying the names of the things. Okay. So we have 49 days. Everybody knows there's 7 times 7. We have the 7 traits of Zer Anpin, the smaller microcosmic face of God, of his traits in man, Chesed, Gevor, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, Yisod, Malchut, 7 of those powers. And when we count and create the vessel to receive it, it doesn't come right away. But if you listen closely to your own soul, you will see that this is exactly what you need and it's exactly the way it's supposed to be. So this combination of powers, which is Chesed Sheba Gevura and Gevura Sheba Chesed, and so on and so forth through all the channels of the tree, we're creating all these combinations. Each combination is considered a new entity. That's difficult for some people. However, we don't want to leave our ideas and our power and potential. We want to make them real. That we want to get through the desert. And not only do we want to get to the desert, but we want this book that's promised to us out there. Okay. Let's see how we're doing on our chat here. So Rhonda's telling us that there are 2 more hours in her time zone, and repeats an idea we had earlier. A vacuum or empty space seeks to be filled. And now this sounds interesting. The way that we identify with being killed, right, is really connects to an earlier idea about this idea of humility. So the matrix of the qualities, they come together and join up on each day. Chesed Sheba Chesed, Sheba Gevura, all the way down the tree, all 7 are cycled and mixed through all 7. Now we come to the point though, why do we have to do all this? Rabbi said count. But if you started to learn the laws of Shulchan Aruch of Sefirat haOmer, you will be amazed how many things that you thought you could do that you can't do, and a few that you can do. Okay, and I have a note here on the side. When we receive an idea, it goes from chitzoni, the outer mind, into the inner mind, the pnimi. That's very important for understanding all these paradigms that we've been talking about. And so now we connect this idea to our previous idea about tzinor as ratzon. Here, we're down here in the world of the physical world. I'm not really thinking about wanting. I just, a few years back, I wanted to get married. It seemed to be the thing you do, at least, which is not an independent thought, right? I'm basing my decision on of having children from others, let's say, for example, which is an individual challenge, actually. So why do I need the names, God's names, the names of the Sefirot? And the simple answer is, it might not be so simple. We're creating more precision with God's names. And when we have precision with His names, that's a form of showing Him awe, obviously. Awe. But when we ourselves have something that we want, or we want something because it's the Torah telling us we should want it, that's good. It's a beginning. We should not mistake the beginning of the path to the end of the path. That's why we're not going to be satisfied just, okay, so we're going to get to the Torah, we're going to receive the Torah. We want to keep the Torah. We don't want to just receive it. but it's the precision of the counting and all the words and the letters and the combinations. That precise counting actually opens up psychic reception in your mind. How? Well, because we understand that our psychic perception is just seeing things earlier than they're broadcasted on Earth. That's what prophecy is, right? It gets broadcast to a certain individual, and he gives it over. Okay. And when we love what we're doing, that expands the idea. And then we go further. When we love, for example, the idea of receiving the Torah, we love the idea of counting the days until we receive the Torah, because it's this idea of counting is also building our desire. So I think this is a good place to kind of call it an end to the, well, if you will, the lecture part of our class. But in review again, remember, Ratzon, desire, is sinor, the will to the thing, that we have to have a desire in order to receive, and that the actual desire shapes the vessel of receiving. And we're creating a vacuum by wanting something and then trying to fill it with something. Okay, we're certainly, we can see across the board in the sciences. And what we're trying to do is move from the potential to the actual. Okay, and so when we count the Omer, we're looking at the combinations of powers. Because each day combination is a little different. And when we catch that combination, it also refines your vessel to receive more clearly, more precisely what's going on around you. I've noticed this by the old rabbis at Nar Shalom. When they're learning, they're learning. You're gonna have a hard time breaking them off of their learning, unless something absurd. But the point is that when we count the Omer and we're receiving these new lights, we're receiving the ability to receive because we want. We allow ourselves to want. You know how many people don't want things because they're afraid of not getting them? So why should I bother wanting that? I'm not going to get it anyways. Well, how do you know? Well, because I know I'm not going to have $1 million to buy one of these crazy supercars. Well, maybe not. But maybe you will, or maybe you'll just have a friend that'll have one or give it to you every, every Sunday to drive around. No, but really, you see here that that when we receive this specificity through the names of God, through the names of the Sefirot, in the counting, it's building our longing, and that's going to take us to the Torah, the receiving the Torah on Shavuot. What's special here? I'll tell you, in my opinion, I'm sure maybe some of you have your own idea, is that when we get this Shavuot after this counting, it's like you've been counting the days that your lover returns. Very nice. But our counting is the combinations of the matrix of these powers. And so I'm really going beyond the simple counting of days. We're counting these combinations of powers. And that is what's actualizing them and creating the potential to receive the Torah again and the lights again. And ultimately, the gift is desire itself. The wanting itself is what's creating the vessel. So all we got to do is keep wanting. Now, Rabbi Nachman says if you keep wanting all the time, you're going to dry out. You have to have some sipuk in Hebrew, which is satisfaction. Enough. But it's something to pay attention to in our lives, because we need to want, but we shouldn't want too much. But what we're doing is we're taking on the will of each of those days. Each day is a certain specific will according to this matrix of the qualities, the powers of the tree of life, and their names, and their divine names, and their sefirot that are connected to them. All of it impacts our wisdom, our understanding of the ideas. So, just to wrap up this, understand, we are beings with many desires. When we can focus all of our many desires onto one thing, your mind becomes like this laser beam, literally, because all of your desires rechanneled back into the mind. And so when we talk about rebuilding God's place, God's presence, we're talking about sharing this will. And the more refined it is, the more powerful it is. You know, if your desire for the Torah is great, you're not going to be interrupted by your phone. You're not going to be interrupted by this one's new clothes or this one's new car keys. You know, you're going to be interested in one thing, and that's what you're doing, which is the learning of Torah in this example. Okay? So we really have to work hard at this because we're trying to build our desire and make it more specific at the same time, so that by the time the 50th gate comes, we're ready to receive the Torah. And we're ready because we've aligned our wills. We've aligned these desires. And that's really, I think, a big piece of the work of Sefirat haOmer is kind of dampening all those physical desires, whether it's to do barbecue or to go, you know, to certain places, shopping, etc., etc. When I can put all those wills into Torah, guess what? You get the ultimate gift. The ultimate gift is just wanting the Torah for the Torah's sake. You have no personal need. You have no ego involved. You have no fame, desires, nothing. That's the ultimate gift. We got to focus on that as being the goal. That's why we say the Shem Yechud Kuchabrich Mushkinte. That's the unification of the male and the female, but we apply it to each of the mitzvot. Okay, how are we doing? I think my voice is a little scratchy. Well, if we don't have any comments or insights, we can move on to meditation. My favorite part of the day. Okay. Everybody, let's take a minute or two, get comfortable. And then we're going to do a meditation. And hopefully we'll touch on some of these ideas in the meditation. Because remember what the Arizal said, when we meditate on the Torah, it's higher than our learning of the Torah. Because we're not just reading words. We're taking one word, one idea, and we're going over it and over it and over it until it opens itself up to us. That's the receiving of Torah. Okay. Okay, let's get comfortable. And as we even become aware of the idea of becoming comfortable, we say, let's meditate, let's get comfortable. we're actually making a choice. But the choice is, do I try to make myself comfortable, or do I just receive it from some psychic plane, let's say, even? Well, I find that if I try to get comfortable, it's not as effective as if I just let myself be and receive it. Not everybody's on the same level. Okay, begin breathing. Great gift of breath. As we breathe deeply through our noses, we see that our minds start to change. The way we relate to our outer world, the way we observe our inner world. Continue breathing. Imagine that you are the tzinor. In your mind's eye, see yourself as the tzinor, the channel.
Rabbi, you are on mute.
If we don't know what we want, we have to find out. And if we're afraid of what we want, then we need help. Someone to talk to. Someone to open up these subjects. But as long as I don't know what I want, I cannot use my mind to create that empty space that will that psychic potential into the world. So tonight in our meditation, we just want to know what we absolutely of all things. Well, people will often say a general idea. I want Torah. I want tefillah. I want to get married. Let's keep breathing. Now, let's say you know what you want. You're just afraid of it. That takes some cheshbon nefesh. That takes some spiritual accounting to see, well, what's going on here? But we have our gift, the gift of meditation, when we just breathe, let things go, breathe, don't worry, because that will damage our faith, that will damage our power to receive. Now, as you see in your mind's eye, ratzon, the word resh, tzadik, vav, and they just assume there was no Kabbalah, there was no Torah. Well, those people will be dealt with in their time. Continue to your breath. Inor, ratzon, just the opposite of each other, and so perfectly alike. May you be blessed, all of you, to discover that thing, that reason for being, that reason that goes beyond us. So I'll take this chance to share a small detail that when I did this meditation with myself quite a while ago, I wrote out what I want in the form of a mission statement. That might be something helpful to some of you. Not just to simply say, oh, I want this, oh, I want that. No, write it out as a mission statement. How does your life look 10 years from today? In my meditation, I just saw a child running towards me. So we'll see what that means. Now, of course, if you don't know what you want and nothing is coming to you in your meditation, then you have a very good strategy. Tell God that you know He knows what you should want. So turn that into a prayer. God, reveal what you want from me, what you want me to do, what you want me to accomplish here in any situation. The minute we do that, we remove the pressure and the stress of the thing that we're praying for. Rather, eventually we see that it's building slowly this connection between us and heaven. And that is the Sefirot and all their combinations. Pay attention to what you see in your meditations. Pay attention to your pauses. Pay attention to everything that you can see or hear or smell or taste or know. So we're going to end the meditation. If anybody has any questions or insights, ideas, be happy to field those now. And you can just write them or call them out, read them, speak them. What is the thing that you are uniquely qualified to want to see in the world? So ultimately, we want sensitivity to other people. And then we're always on God's side, especially then. Here in your silence, your deeper truth. Here. Okay. So let's return to our conscious breathing and the world's religions that have come from the beginning, have come down to us through Judaism. Okay. Turn from meditation, we open our eyes gently, slowly, because of the glares. We open our ears to listen to sounds around us. We open our eyes to perceive beyond normal perception. It's not a matter of merit, it's a matter of God's gifts and how it mean to them, to those who receive them. Okay. So this is a small, short meditation, limited here. But it's the type of meditation you can create as you go. Why? Because you have a basic setup. You have a need to be answered. And in the right place, the right time, we will be illuminated by these things. Okay. So if there are no questions or comments or insights, that's okay.
I have a question.
Okay, please.
Well, it's kind of like a dilemma. So, in my vision of the future, I
Right.
see myself married and living in Israel,
Wonderful.
but I'm currently not married. So, how do I figure out if I'm supposed to find him here and then move, or if I'm supposed to move first and then find him?
You know, Rhonda, that's the type of question I would answer in a private meeting, because it would take me a half hour of questions to answer your question.
Okay.
Because I would have to go all the deep. A person that gives advice on such a deep, important thing as making aliyah or marrying a guy, you need a lot of real good information before you can just throw an advice out there. You know, it's too big, it's too important. But the advice that we always have behind everything else that we do is to pray about that.
Yeah.
I hope you have, to pray about this question, the dilemma. Because first of all, for God, it's not a dilemma. He sets us up with the dilemma in order to get us to pray, to do the work we need to do.
That makes sense. Like, I know he doesn't want me there yet because Israel's closed to me.
Well, pretty much. I understand they're going to open it up pretty soon. But of course,
Yeah, but I
there's
still
tons
don't
of
have a passport.
right. But there's tons of paperwork also that need to be done, and telephones, and you know how it goes. You're dealing with most people that, that don't want to be doing what they're doing. So whatever.
All right.
But as far as the dating thing, it's a separate question. It's more, you're not, a woman is not even commanded to marry. A man is, because man's nature is not to marry. Whereas a woman's nature is to marry, so God doesn't have to command her. But it is important to us, I believe, that meeting the right guy and getting married is outweighs the making aliyah. If you have someone that you love or they love you, that's it. That comes before geography.
Right.
Even if it's holy geography. And if it's the right one, and if he's really your mate, he's going to want to do these kind of things that you want to do also. So I strongly encourage you to continue the dating process and the aliyah process, and the clarifications that need to happen along the way.
Yeah. Okay.
But you're certainly not trapped, and I wouldn't call it a dilemma. It's a matter of choices, but you're taking action.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're not stuck. I know people that are stuck. It's terrible. They really want to be here and they really can't get here. And a lot of times it's around family. But I assume that's not so much your situation. But if you want to talk about it privately,
in Israel now.
Okay, they're here now.
They're
So
there
listen,
now.
if you want to talk about the whole thing, Rhonda, if you want to talk about the whole thing privately, that would be the way to go now. I think I was just trying to be, answer you in a general way.
Yeah, I get it. Thank you.
Okay, it's principles that everybody can appreciate your situation. But it's the same thing as when I say I don't have the money for what I want. Well, first get what you want down, and the money will come. So what do you want more, the aliyah or the husband? And we'll leave it at that. Okay.
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 Thanks.
Very good. Should hear good news.
Amen.
Should be
Thanks.
a blessing. Anyone else? Shalom, Wayne. Of course, Ariel. Good to see you.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, shalom. Yeah. Hi. How are you?
Good.
Okay. So, yeah.
Is Manhattan still a ghost town?
Sometimes, somewhat. I mean, it's just like you know, certain things
Where are
doing
you?
certain things. Well, like right now I'm in Brooklyn. I'm working on the local friends campaign for city council. Um, like on Sheepshead Bay, Brighton Beach, Kings Highway, Midwood, Flatbush. Those type of places.
Well, you should have success, Ariel, with what you're
Yeah, my
doing,
man.
and help the
Thank you
righteous
very
guy
much. Man,
have
yeah.
some, influence in the American system is not simple these days.
Yeah, man, thank you very much. Yeah.
So we'll look forward to next week, everyone, and we're getting close. Next week, well, let's see. This week is Lag BaOmer. This time, the heart of Lag BaOmer. I plan on broadcasting live from Lag BaOmer. I just don't know how we're going to do a Shira because it's going to be very loud. So I have to work that out with the Lighthouse. But next week should be live from Meron, Har Meron, and the Hilula of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai.
How
So
exciting.
look forward to seeing all of you then. And God should protect you and your families and guard you and guide you and bless you. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Amen.
Shabbat shalom. Thank you.